Hey guys, welcome this time to Economic Channel. As you know, we have been doing together the diplomatic segment covering the World Cup, trying to understand the perspective of ambassadors here in Kuwait and diplomats over the performance of their countries into this tournament in 2026. We are doing a special episode today, post-World Cup. We know we had a great final, and today we're discussing with a very special guest, Her Excellency Tara Shorwater, Ambassador of Canada in Kuwait. Tara, welcome to our segment.
Thank you very much for having me.
There's a very important role that you guys played this year. And this is the reason why we're doing this now, because beyond participating, and we know Canada did the phenomenal job. I had the pleasure of attending some of the games that you hosted. We know that Canada hosted the tournament, and it's not a small thing at all. And I wanted to ask you, how do you feel that this impacted Canada, the local economy, tourism, and from a sporting perspective as well?
Yeah. Well, certainly Canada was really proud to be one of the co-hosts along with Mexico and the United States. It was an opportunity for us to showcase Canada as a sporting nation. Certainly, I think people in Kuwait and around the world, they think we only do ice hockey. That's not the case.
Okay.
Soccer is actually particularly popular in Canada amongst young people. I have 4 kids. They all played soccer growing up and enjoyed intramural soccer throughout their childhood. But I think this was an opportunity for us. We've hosted the FIFA alone before for the women, but it was our first time having the opportunity to host men and co-hosting along with, like I said, Mexico and the United States. Mm-hmm. So it was a real opportunity to showcase the 2 cities where it was hosted, Vancouver and Toronto. Okay. Those are both well-known destinations for tourism. But it was also an opportunity to showcase the values that we think are Canada's value added, I should say, which are, the diversity, inclusion, safety. And those were all areas where Canada really shone. I think that if you talk or you see many people on YouTube or different podcasts talking about their World Cup experience, going to see things, they really enjoyed their time in Canada. All of the teams felt well prepared because we have such a diverse population that there was fans for any team that was playing had such a large population of fans. And on top of that, it really showcased and gave an opportunity to showcase Canada as a tourism destination, but also as the values that I mentioned of inclusion and safety and diversity are all values that provide us with a competitive advantage when it comes to investment, when it comes to doing business, because it's really the diversity is our strength that brings innovation and brings the kind of environment, political environment that is safe and as a really stable and predictable regulatory environment, which is a good place. It's one of the reasons among the G7 we're attracting the most investment per capita of any of the G7 countries.
Exactly. And I know for a fact that the Kuwait appreciates all of these values that you mentioned. But one of the reasons why there's all these close ties, we will reach there. But I want to focus a bit more on the World Cup and ask you, when you look at this full month, a bit over a month, what do you think is the most lasting impact that the World Cup is going to leave in Canada after this tournament?
Well, unlike some host countries, we already had the infrastructure in place. So there wasn't a lot of new infrastructure like you see in Qatar, where the infrastructure was built for the World Cup. And now that in itself is a lasting legacy where they can use it beyond that. We already had the infrastructure in place. But more importantly, I think it was just the eyes on Canada. Many people hadn't really thought of Canada as a nation that supports sports outside of ice hockey, like I said. Okay. Even though our national sport, by the way, not ice hockey, it's lacrosse. People don't know that.
What is lacrosse?
Lacrosse, it's a field. It's very similar to field hockey, but you use sticks that have nets in them and you pass the ball with the stick. It's an indigenous sport that started in Canada and it's played still around the world, but very much in Canada.
You just learned something new.
Yes.
Okay, sorry. I let you
so
go on.
Lacrosse and ice hockey are sports, but no, really, football is played significantly in Canada. And I think also people, they still have this impression that Canada is igloos and snow and cold, and they ended up having an opportunity to see Canada shine. And it was warm in Canada. It was an opportunity to show good weather, kind people, and the hospitality that Canada is famous for, just like Kuwait is famous for its hospitality.
Yes, exactly. And I'm thinking now about the GCC countries. You just mentioned that Qatar hosted the previous World Cup, and it was a lot of work preparing for that. But outside of developing the infrastructure itself, do you think that there's any lessons that the GCC countries could learn from Canada in terms of hosting such an important event?
I think that every time a country hosts an event, it's helpful to look at what past countries did. So Canada certainly learned from Qatar. And I think that if the countries that are hosting in the future, they would be looking at their predecessors to see what they did. I think that in this case, you had 3 host countries, and you can see there was criticism in some cases and praise in other cases. And I think that it's always mindful of making sure that sport is something that brings people together and doesn't tear them apart in terms of political or, nationalistic concerns. So I think we really need to focus on that. And that's something that, Canada really tried to do, as do all host nations when they're hosting something like this. I think the important thing is to bring together people beyond what's happening in the world and give them the opportunity to show that, people-to-people ties are the most important thing.
Exactly. And like they say, if there's no criticism on your work, it means you're doing something wrong. Yeah, I want to focus with you back on something you just mentioned, and this is this close tie between Kuwait and Canada. Mm-hmm. We know they have quite a significant community here in Kuwait. You mentioned around 8,000 Canadians.
Yeah, there's about 8,000 Canadians, of course. Many of those are living and working here for a long time and hold dual citizenship, perhaps with other countries as well. Not with Kuwait, but with, Lebanese Canadians living here or Egyptian Canadians. But there's, I think that the impression that people have about Canada is certainly the ties that we have in education and healthcare. Many Kuwaitis were educated in Canada and then came back to Kuwait. And so those are lasting ties that will remain strong. We have obviously a lot of opportunity to affect the healthcare system here because we have accreditation systems from Canada that are part of the regulatory environment here, and that makes a big difference as well. So from education, we have these ties that continue to last. People that are educated in Canada bring back the expertise, but also the mindset of what they want and how they want to regulate their own profession. So that happens when it came to doctors. It happens even, we have Coast Guard training for Kuwaiti Coast Guards that members they train in Canada. When they come back, I think they always bring a little bit of maple syrup with them.
Yeah, and I think I like that you mentioned healthcare. My next question was going to be in relation to that, but not only that. I want to ask you, as an ambassador here, where do you see the biggest potential areas of growth, let's say, between Canada and Kuwait?
Certainly there's lots of opportunity to continue to cooperate when it comes to healthcare, when it comes to education, and not just education in terms of, educating one more person to go to a university in Canada, but these kind of institutional tie-ups, research partnerships, those kinds of things. I think that that's really important because Kuwait is developing a really dynamic education infrastructure here, and it's important that that's be supported through those kinds of institutional partnerships. But in addition to that, I think defense and security is certainly one way. As I said, we have lots of training opportunities already where, different facets of pilots or Coast Guard members are trained in Canada. So there's certainly more opportunities there. And I think obviously the connection that Canada and Kuwait have when it comes to energy is really important. We both are oil producing countries. And in addition to that, what Canada has done is while maintaining the traditional energy sector, it's also supported that through renewable resources. And we have a lot of instances where we've actually are supporting our oil extraction through renewable resources that can allow standalone infrastructure. And much like here in Kuwait, a lot of the oil infrastructure is in remote communities. And so there's a lot of offset from that. So things like sensing equipment so that, if a pipeline leaks, even though it's several hundred kilometers away, that it's happening in terms of telecommunication. There's a lot of these kinds of innovation that happened from our energy sector, and it's an opportunity. I think Kuwait and Canada have a lot of opportunity to cooperate on that as well. And of course, investment. Canada has invested about $6 billion in Kuwait, and I think Kuwait has certainly invested many times that in Canada. And I think Canada has shown itself in part through the World Cup, but also in general. You will see that it's a stable and safe regulatory environment and predictable. And that's important for investors. They want to know that when they're putting their money somewhere, that they can predict what's going to happen in the next couple of years and that their growth will be stable, and Canada can provide that. So I think that there's lots of opportunities for continued cooperation. And of course, Canada and Kuwait are both very, from a political standpoint, very supportive of multilateralism. And that's important in a country or in a world right now where maybe that kind of support for multilateralism is diminishing a bit. Mm-hmm. And so I think there's opportunities for Canada and Kuwait to work together to continue to support institutions where countries can work together, because despite everything that's going on, I think we're better and stronger when we work together.
Exactly. And you did touch on a very important thing, and I really hope to see more of that, because we are struggling a bit. We know that Kuwait is producing a lot of energy, but it's also using a lot of energy with all the temperatures rising constantly from a year to another. And I just wanted to understand a bit better when you talk about investments and growing opportunities. Do you think... Actually, do you see anything that might happen or expand, let's say, during your tenure here? Is there anything that you wish is going to happen, let's say, before you leave Kuwait one day?
Well, I can't play all my cards, but I do have some specific goals, obviously. And a lot of that has to do with having specific agreements in place so that we can expand our cooperation. One of the things we have in place, for example, we've had for decades, is a joint investment protection agreement. So that means that Canada and Kuwait have made an agreement on how we will treat each other's investment in each other's countries. And again, that's part of this sort of stable and reliable environment. But I hope that we can build on that by having agreements. We also have an agreement when it comes to health. So looking forward to having an agreement on defense and security as well. And then I think, my goal is to make sure that we have more Kuwaitis come and visit Canada and see how great that is. I hope that they could one day do that without needing a visa. But I don't know if that's in the cards or not, but certainly it's one of my objectives, as well as having more direct flights, or more, if any, direct flights. Right now we have none. Air Canada and Kuwait Airlines, we'd like to see them cooperate more and maybe have direct flights going, whether it's to Toronto, Vancouver, Montreal, or even Calgary.
But tell me something beyond education, which we know drove a lot of people visiting Canada and staying there for a while, and mere tourism. Do you see any opportunities for Kuwaitis or people here in the region visiting and maybe staying for a longer time in Canada? Do you see some opportunities for them as well?
Yeah, absolutely. Obviously, certainly postgraduate work in medical field is one where you have people that are spending, years in Canada and then perfecting their craft and then coming back and using those expertise here in Kuwait. But I think there's opportunity as well for investment. We have a number of major projects when it comes to whether it's ports or new infrastructure and energy infrastructure, but also infrastructure in terms of artificial intelligence, digital innovation, things like that. So I think that there's certainly opportunity there for Kuwaitis to get involved. And I think vice versa, there's opportunities for Canada, including Canadian capital, to support some of the major projects that are happening here in Kuwait, including a potential pipeline. So those kinds of, mutual beneficial relationships when it comes to investment. We're a country where certainly we'll accept capital investment anytime, and the major projects offices like this. But we also think that there's an opportunity for companies to go there and learn. A good example is we don't have a major company, oil company working here right now, but we have hundreds of Canadians working in the oil sector. And one of the reasons is because even major companies like Shell is not a Canadian company, but of course there's a Shell Canada subsidiary. But what happens is many of the contractors that are working for Shell here are from Canada. They do regular, the Kuwait oil workers go to Canada and learn about much of the innovation that's happening in Canada in the oil fields there, because we have similar kinds of oil. And so I think that it's important that we recognize that, innovation happens individually on that kind of a scale. It's not always company to company, but there's also opportunity for companies to work together. Canada has a lot of small companies that are doing some really innovative things when it comes to AI, when it comes to digital innovation technology. And like I said, even on renewable energy, a lot of clean technology. So, extracting oil is inherently dirty. It provides, it's not a clean process, but there's opportunities for using that kind of same technology to remediate the ground that we're taking the oil from and end up returning it to the way it was before we took the oil from it. There's opportunities for site remediation, but also for using, like I said, to make sure that when you extract, you do it in the most, I guess, safest manner possible, or kindest manner to the world. And so we're trying our best to use those innovations and share them with others.
How should a Kuwaiti who wants to go to Canada and spend some time there for knowledge exchange and otherwise mentally prepare to go from plus 50 degrees to minus 40?
Well, we say there's no bad weather, there's only bad clothes. So it's all about layering. And here you can only take so many layers off before it's just still hot. But at least in Canada, you can always put on one more layer and you'll be fine. We have very good central heating in Canada. So that's one thing. And just like here, there's not many Kuwaitis who enjoy the plus 50. They tend to go from their car to their office and from their office to their car to home, and they don't spend a lot of time outdoors. And what we do in Canada actually is the opposite. Now, minus 50, maybe not, but certainly even when it's minus 20, minus 30, where I'm from, there's festivals that happen outside, and people try to enjoy the winter with outdoor carnivals and outdoor concerts. Even sometimes it's hard to get an entertainer that wants to sing when it's minus 20, but we manage. There's a few Canadians that are up for it, and I think that it's important that you try and enjoy the weather that you have. So if there's snow, you should learn how to ski. You should at least make a snowman, go for walks in the weather. If, there's ice, you should go ice skating. And, even soccer, we're going back to the World Cup, we have a very thriving winter soccer season that happens in it. We have indoor arenas just like here. So much of the way that we deal with the weather is very similar, actually. You can't play soccer in plus 50, but you also can't play it in minus 20 or 30. And so indoor arenas are a good way, but it's also kind of fun sometimes to play soccer in the snow.
For people planning their next vacation, who maybe would consider Canada as a destination, I know that you guys organize quite a lot of festivals. You have a lot of great musicians also, Justin Bieber phenomenon that's coming from Canada.
Every time I talk about Canadian singers, people are like, oh, I didn't know that they were Canadian. I said something about, was it Tate McRae or Drake or Justin Bieber, Brian Adams, and people are like, they don't always know that these people are Canadian. So it's just like stores here. People don't know that Lululemon is Canadian, or they don't know that Aldo is Canadian. And so sometimes I'm in the mall and I'm like, what do you mean? La Vie en Rose, that's Canadian. And people are like, what? I had no idea. So, Four Seasons, it's important that we sort of, I think we need to wave our flag a little bit more and remind people of all the entertainers, but also all the stores and all the things that come from Canada, because everyone needs a little bit more Canada in their life.
Exactly. And this is what I wanted to ask you. If somebody would consider visiting Canada, they've never been, they're thinking to do something fun this summer, autumn. Is there anything that you think they shouldn't miss? A festival, a specific celebration that's happening?
Certainly in the summer, the Jazz Festival in Montreal is amazing. I think that, though, for me, because I'm from Alberta.
Okay.
So for me, it's all about nature. And the Rocky Mountains in the summer are unbeatable. Okay. And going to Banff, Jasper, Lake Louise, and seeing the blue waters, enjoying the hot springs, and being in the mountains, there's nothing that beats that.
Okay, wonderful. Tara, remind me, how long have you been in Kuwait?
Not even a year yet.
Okay.
So I'm still learning. I still feel fresh, but I think that there's a lot more to learn.
Is it your first experience with an Arab country?
Yes, it's the first time in the GCC. I was the consul general in Istanbul before this. So, not unfamiliar with some of the culture, but it's quite different. And I'm so happy. I think I'm lucky that Kuwait is my introduction to the GCC because everyone is so welcoming. The hospitality is amazing. And certainly it's going to be difficult to go somewhere else after this because I'll always compare and I'll think that any other place will probably compare negatively. And
this is what I wanted to ask you about your impression so far after 1 year. I think it's enough time for you to have an impression already. And I think it's interesting because speaking to the previous ambassadors who joined us, a lot of them mentioned the same thing, that they feel that the ambassadors are so welcomed inside the communities because, being a diplomat usually creates this barrier between different layers of society. And they say we felt so welcome like no other place.
I mean, I still have to remind people, please do not say Your Excellency all the time. It's just Tara. But I mean, Canadians, I was talking about this with my Australian colleague, actually, because both Australia and Canada are sort of known for being kind of down to earth. And we're always like, I got actually mocked at the airport the other day. I was going away for the weekend. Okay. And I went through the normal airport and they're like, why are you coming through the normal airport? You're the ambassador. And they're like, and you're flying economy? And I was like, okay. I just got called out for not being ambassadorial enough because I didn't go through the VIP lounge. But
let's not make it into a news.
I know. I was like, keep your voice down, okay? I'm cheap and I'm flying economy and I'm not going through the VIP lounge. But I think that, one of the best things about being in Kuwait is the hospitality and people letting you just, sometimes take off your diplomatic hat and enjoy the people. And the people-to-people ties are what make the relationship between Canada and Kuwait so wonderful. It's one of the reasons I enjoyed hosting World Cup watch parties so much. Canada is not a soccer powerhouse. I think that our team is amazing and it's only going to get better because it's still a young team. But, we made it to the round of 16. We did just as well as the Americans and the Mexicans who are our co-hosts. So, I thought we did quite well. But being able to host so many games in my home and have Kuwaitis, friends, business contacts, cultural contacts, just join together and see them get to know one another more, even separate from me, was really wonderful. And I was really grateful to be able to pay back a small bit of the hospitality that had been extended to me because people have just been so kind since I've arrived.
And I know that you did host quite a lot of events in your residency in the embassy for people who wanted to watch the World Cup. Congratulations on that. But also I know that you constantly have events in the embassy promoting different initiatives, supporting different agendas in relation to the National Development Plan. Anything we can be expecting, let's say, before the end of the year or beginning of next year?
I think probably the largest initiative that we're working on right now is creating a Canadian Business Council, CanCham. Okay. So we can all look forward to that. It's the working group has been just started working on it now. So over the summer, they've been busy, despite summer is supposed to be quiet in Kuwait. That's not happening this summer. And by the fall, we'll be having a launch. So I hope that all the companies that are connected to Canada and any Kuwaiti company that wants to be connected to Canada will join us in the big launch of the CanCham.
And of course, we're invited to the launch.
Of course. Of course.
Wonderful. Well, Tara, I can't thank you enough for being here with us. Again, major congratulations for the team, the team's performance during the tournament, for hosting the World Cup. Before we conclude, any message you would like to send to our audience in relation to the World Cup or simply in relation to Canada and your mission here?
Well, I think at the heart, the purpose of tournaments like the World Cup is really to show the importance of sport in bringing people together. Yeah. And I think that certainly Canada, that was our goal in being a co-host, was to show those values and make sure that people knew that despite all the division that's happening in the world, that we're all people at heart and we can all enjoy soccer together. Mm-hmm. And I think that it doesn't matter what country you're from or what religion you are or what the color of your skin is, that you're all just going to come together under a common interest. And so people like you and I maybe don't follow Premier League so much during the year, but, we all came together for this and learned a little bit more about the sport. And I think that's really the beauty of it. And so certainly Canada hosting that, we were very proud to be a part of that kind of initiative.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you very much, Christina.
Guys, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Last one covering the World Cup. We will for sure see you on the next tournament. Until then, don't forget to leave your comments in the comment section down below. And we'll see you next time.